What's up, guys? This is Kephas.
So there is an interesting change coming to World of Warcraft in Midnight, and I'm not sure how many people are aware of it. I know I remember hearing about it and then I kind of forgot, but it involves skywriting. And so I was on my mount and I was just kind of flying around and I realized that there's no vigor bar. I thought maybe it was a bug. I was looking around like, where's my vigor bar? And then I remembered that in Midnight, vigor is gone. They actually scrapped it, sort of. Like they literally did scrap vigor. There is no vigor bar. And so I was kind of like, oh man, did they kind of change how skywriting works? Like did they scrap the idea? Like it's still functioning, but what's changed? And so I was reading through the tooltips, which is really what you should do before you ever panic. I wish more of us would remember that, especially myself. I'm really bad about that. But I was reading through the different tooltips and I have an idea now how it works. Basically, on paper and in terms of how you interact with skywriting, nothing's really changing. So you don't have vigor anymore, but what you have are charges, just standard cooldown charges. And you have 6 charges and they're shared between your 2 main skywriting abilities, which are Surge Forward and Skyward Ascent. Now, they function just like vigor. You have 6 of them. When you use one of those abilities, you use a charge, and as you're flying around, as you gain momentum and you go faster, you will regain those charges faster as well. So it really does work just like before. You even still have second wind, and you can use that to regenerate a charge. And so everything is basically the same, but there are some big wins here. And I think that in terms of like functionality, I think that this is a massive improvement. And so the first big thing, I think that my favorite thing is that when you lift off, that no longer consumes a charge. So that's free now, just like how it works with Soar. If you play a Drag Fear, now when you lift off, you don't waste a charge of, we'll still call it vigor because it basically is kind of like still vigor. The other big thing is that when you use Whirling Surge, that no longer consumes charges as well. In retail, that consumes 3 charges, but now it doesn't consume any, it just has a 30-second cooldown. So you get that for free, and you also get lifting off for free, and then otherwise everything else is pretty much the exact same. And so I think that's really cool that they've made these changes. I think that it's nice that the mechanically skywriting still functions the same, and if anything, it's just a little bit more smooth and probably in better pretty much in every way in terms of how the mechanics work. But the only thing that kind of bothers me is that there's no longer a vigor bar. And so this is where, like, I always like to encourage people to have an open mind here, because I can see where, a lot of people may not care about this, right? Like, it doesn't matter. I didn't like the vigor bar. It just cluttered my screen. I don't need it. I can look at my action bar and see the charges, right? I can see where people might feel that way, but I hope that you could also maybe see how this is kind of a problem for myself. And so I've shrunk down my action bars, so they're obviously harder to see, but even if I had my action bars larger, it's a lot less intuitive to track these charges through my action bar than it was with the vigor bar. I liked the vigor bar. I thought it was a lot easier to track things, and certainly to track my vigor, and it is a shame that that's gone. And I'm a little perplexed as to why that aspect of it was removed. Like, why was vigor removed? Because like, vigor as a name has been removed, but it's still functionally there. You still have to manage it. It's just that it's now tracked through tooltips as opposed to or icons as opposed to a vigor bar. And I feel like the vigor bar was a lot more intuitive. Now, I'm visually impaired, and so that kind of has a big impact on why I feel that way. But also, I feel like there might be a lot of people who aren't disabled who would also kind of say they would probably prefer having the vigor bar there. I think that it was nice and very helpful, and it just was more intuitive. It provided, more like easily glanceable feedback. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to like look down at an action bar. You can just simply glance and see it. And it's weird that that's gone. Now, the reason why it perplexes me is because, like, we're going into an era in World of Warcraft, where we're trying not to rely on add-ons. We're trying to make the game more intuitive, and certainly, you know, we're trying to be more mindful of accessibility, right? And I want to highlight this because I think it kind of helps explain why people like me, even though I'm a big fan of removing the barrier to entry in terms of combat add-ons, right? I think it's a good thing that we don't need those anymore, and we won't have those anymore. Overall, the benefit that add-ons provide in terms of accessibility is very large, and it is concerning when we talk about removing add-ons, because for a lot of us that affects how we play. Like right now, I'm not able to easily track my vigor, and so what I've done is I've tried out an add-on, and it's actually an add-on I use in live called Glider, and it has been updated for midnight, thankfully. And I want to show you how this add-on works, because basically what this add-on does is it brings back the vigor bar. Now in live, it just changes the vigor bar to be this little pie bar, right? And so as you can see there, liftoff didn't take a charge, whirling surge didn't take a charge, but I can easily tell how many charges I have as I do skyward ascent, as I do surge forward. I can see that it's recharging. I can even see if I'm gaining momentum. I can see how fast I'm going there, and I can customize this too. I can change the size, color, what information is provided. Of course, I can use second wind, and it's regaining a charge there as well. So this allows me to easily see what's going on, right? So problem solved. But it is interesting that in an era where we are moving away from add-ons solving these types of problems, a problem was created for me that required an add-on to fix it, right? And that is in the vigor bar, because let's say add-ons were gone completely. Well, if the vigor bar is still there, this wouldn't be a problem. I would have a version of the vigor bar that I don't prefer. I personally feel like the default one has been very gaudy and large, and so that's why I understand why some people might say it's a bit cluttery. I prefer this little tiny, you know, circle that kind of reminds me of like the Zelda stamina bar from like Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild, you know. I like it. I think it's a lot better, but it is funny that I had to use an add-on. I think it's ironic that that I had to go back and use an add-on when we're trying to get away from needing add-ons. I essentially need this add-on to effectively skyride, right? And I think that's important because, like I said, I think that, like, I'm always trying to say, you know, to encourage players, like, I'm with you in the need to remove add-ons for the combat reasons, right? But I'm hoping that player base can be sympathetic, because there are a lot of people like me. There are a lot of people with different disabilities and different needs, and accessibility is very important in this game. And one of the things that people say, you know, is that, well, when they get rid of add-ons, Blizzard will cover the accessibility, right? They'll take care of it. The game will become more accessible. Well, the problem with that, and this is why, like, if it's not your lived experience, then it's hard to understand, and that's why it's good to hear other perspectives, right? You know, this is a situation where the game was more accessible in live and is becoming less accessible in the next expansion. So they're not making it more accessible, they're making it less accessible. And I don't say that with judgment. I'm saying that I don't think that's their intention. They're not doing that on purpose. They're not saying, let's make the blind guy have a harder time with skywriting by removing the vigor bar. They just came up with an idea for a change for whatever reason, and it's a blind spot, ironically. Like, no pun intended. It's a blind spot where they don't see that being a problem because it's not their lived experience. It's not their reality. And so someone like me is experiencing a less accessible version of the game, and thankfully a mod was there to be the safety net. And that's why I'm a champion for UI customization and add-ons, because when you have more eyes, again, no pun intended, but when you have more eyes, more hands, more people involved with, you know, UI development and customization, then you have more people being covered and more safety nets and more safety measures in play. And so that's why when I say I don't have the faith in Blizzard to make the game more accessible, I'm not saying that as a judgment. I'm saying that when you have fewer people or you have one vision, I keep using vision, it's funny, then you're going to miss things. You're going to have blind spots, and then more people are going to struggle to play the game. And that's important because just like you, I've been playing this game for a long time. Just like you, I want to keep playing this game for a long time. And I think that if you had your access taken away for whatever reason, I think there are a lot of people that would bum you out, right? And so I think that it's important to, I can't tell you what to think or feel. And I'm not saying that you're wrong for feeling differently or being glad that the vigor bar is gone. But I definitely think it's important to say, hey, I understand, and that sucks. And yeah, I think that in a lot of these situations, it's important to remember that it's one thing to try to improve the game by removing barriers to entry. It's another thing when people's accessibility, their access, and their ability to be able to play the game is gone because something that's always been there is being taken away, right? And as long as we've had Skyriding, we've had an easy way to track our charges to use our abilities. And we called it vigor, now it's just called charges. It's the same thing, and it is a little bit weird that was just kind of removed. I don't fully understand why the vigor bar was removed. I could see maybe having an option to turn it off, but removing it entirely, that's a problem, and that makes Skyriding a lot harder. And so that's just a good example of what it's like when you have to rely solely on like one source, one development team to play the game. And so hopefully this not only, hopefully this, I didn't fully mean for this to become like a reflective piece about accessibility, but my main goal was to kind of show the change and also a way to fix it if you like having a vigor bar with this add-on, and hopefully also just add to the discussion about accessibility. And I hope that you can see where I'm coming from. But either way, if you stuck around this far to my chatter, just yapping, I really appreciate it. Thank you for always stopping by and listening to what I have to say. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. And with all that being said, I will see you guys on the next one.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, let me know by clicking that like button. And feel free to share it with your friends so they can enjoy it as well. And if you'd like to see more videos, you can subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to be notified as soon as new videos are posted. You can also follow me on Facebook, and if you'd like, you can support my work on Patreon. Links to all that stuff can be found in the description below. This is Kephas. Until next time.